Okay, Painting 1 students, we're going to work on a new technique to us. We've completed our sphere monochromatic study, and we practiced a couple of different versions of blending paint. We've used wet on wet 3-brush technique, and we've also done some dry brushing and scumbling as ways to try to get paint to blend into other paint. And we focus monochromatic because it makes it a little bit easier, and we get to mix our variants and blend them, and there's not quite the complications of full color. The other thing we've done at this point is created a nice surface for an underpainting. And this is an underpainting value study, and now we're going to glaze colors on top of it. And with glazing, we're going to use more of a transparent application of paint. So we wind up using water and thinning out the paint colors that we have over here. We're going to start with yellow. We're going to water some of this yellow down. We're going to take this paint. I'm going to kind of smash it into the water a little bit so that it mixes. And trying to get it maybe to the consistency of a heavy cream or something. I'm using a synthetic hairbrush, one of the large round brushes that we have, and I'm going to test it really quickly. We can test the transparency of our paint. We can use these the value bar that we created and see if we got a good transparency. If we can see the value underneath the yellow still, but it takes on the yellow color, then we know we've got a good consistency there. Now, the other tool we're going to need today is a nice smooth cotton rag. This is just a t-shirt material here, and I wanted to test that paint, but I don't really want it on there. So I'm going to take a nice rag, I'm dipping it in a little bit of water here, and then I'm just going to wipe that off, get rid of that water. And that's one of the nice things about this technique, is the ability to kind of wipe it away. But you need a cotton rag at this point. If you don't have one, get one, and sacrifice a t-shirt to the art gods, maybe. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to glaze our sphere here with this nice yellow, transparent yellow finish. And I'm going to use my finger and try to blend with the highlight there. If I get too much, I may use my rag to wipe a little bit out. And then I'm just going to use my finger again. But again, I want my highlight there, but I don't want an outline around it. I'm going to paint my yellow glaze all the way up to the edges here. And I want it transparent, so I'm not trying to get rid of any of the work that we've done previously for this value study of the sphere. I'm just going to add color to the sphere now. So I'm trying to put it down evenly. I don't want it puddling anywhere. And I'm just going to get it down here. Now I'm working quick again because I'm going to want to blend this yellow into the orange that we're going to put into the shadow area. We're going to make this sphere, we're going to add color to it. We're going to keep it in a warm family to start out with. But I want to put that yellow down, and while it's wet, I want to get my orange into the area of shadow that's beside it. So I'm going to save that brush for those, and then I'll get another round here, and I'll make a nice watery orange for the, and I just like to use my spray bottle and spray a little bit of water right beside my paint, and then kind of, like I said, smash the paint into it. Try to get a nice transparent, I want it to be transparent, I want it to have color to it. I don't want it to be too weak of a transparent color, but I don't want it to be too thick either. And then again, if I want to test, I can kind of use the value bar here as a test area. Not real strong. Maybe I want to try to get a little. Wipe that away. I'm gonna mix a little more paint in there, try to get a little more color into that glaze. And it's just water and acrylic paint. Now, I'm gonna add my orange into this area of shadow here. Still following those same value shapes from the original kind of map of the chiaroscuro values. I'm gonna put that orange in there. I'm gonna save that brush. And I'm gonna use a flat brush. Again, I'm staying with synthetic hair, dark handle brushes at this point. Just gonna have this little flat edge here. And I'm gonna try to get these two kind of blend into each other. My yellow may have dried just a hair, but hopefully these are still gonna transition into each other real subtly here. I don't want to have a line. Same way I didn't want a line when I put the original values in. I don't want to have a line now between the area of light and the area of shadow. And that's pretty good blending. Now while that is still wet, I'm going to put in a red glaze for the area of shadow. Now you might want to try to mix the glazes a little bit ahead of time if you have a little more question about just how to get them to the right consistency, and you want to do little paint tests like I did. You might want to do this a little bit ahead of time. But I think I got this pretty well figured out in terms of consistency. Yeah, but you want to work rapid, same way you do anytime you're trying to blend paints, keep paints wet and get them to blend into each other. Now I'm going to save that brush dedicated to red. Again, I'm going to come over here with a flat. I'm going to get a smaller one this time because I don't want this red or orange to travel very far. Again, I'm going to kind of just try to pull them together real gently here. And this is basically wet on wet blending of the glazes. So I've gone yellow, orange, and now red. That one up a little high, and maybe I need to try to make a little bit of a yellow addition right there. Push that stuff back down. I've got my brush dedicated to yellow here. Just trying to, again, work back over that area, that yellow. So I keep these brushes dedicated to these different colors. I don't want this brush very wet at all. I just want it, and a lot of times I'll use my hand to try to get it just to damp, not wet. Get my blending on here again. So we got yellow blending into orange, orange blending into red. And then we're going to put orange in again in the area of reflected light. Again, I'm trying to work pretty rapid because a little drop of water there. I'm trying to work pretty rapid because I want my different glazes to blend into each other, and if I don't go fairly rapid, one will dry out and it won't blend, and that won't work very well for me. I'm probably going to put in just a tiny bit more red to make sure that it is active and will blend up. I'll give myself a little more blending to do up top there. There we go. Now I'll leave my brush dedicated to red out there. Smaller flat here. Again, I don't want it wet. I just kind of want it damp. Sometimes I'll use my fingers to flatten it out and make sure it's a nice, smooth, flat surface there. And we're blending again here. Trying to get the red and the orange to fade into each other a little bit. If I go over the line, sometimes I try to take it off with my finger real fast. So we're trying to get our area of core shadow to be red. The area of reflected light is kind of an orange. The area of shadow is an orange. And we're trying to put the paint down in such a way that it is transparent. We don't get rid of anything we've done previously in terms of the value study. At this point, we're just colorizing what we had previously. Looks like I need to blend the top of that thing again a little bit. So the 3-brush technique, having the blending brush is quite a kind of a repeat of the wet on wet blending with opaque paint. We're just doing the same thing with transparent paint this time. Put that up there. Okay, so that's basically the idea. So we went, I could add a little more orange back in there. I think I obliterated a little bit of it with the red, kind of ran up there into it. I could put a little bit more orange back in the area of shadow, just so I get those nice color transitions. And blend again. Uh-oh, don't want standing water like that. I need a paper towel maybe to dry that up. Get that off there. Okay. And these things just a tiny bit. As long as they're both wet, they should blend pretty well with each other. That probably ran a little far up. Use my yellow brush to push that back down again. Okay. Blending is pretty good at this point. A little mark right there. Okay, so now we got it colorized just slightly. Yellow, orange, red, orange. And so we've made our sphere, we've glazed it with warm colors. Now we want to glaze into the background. I'm going to go ahead and drop these colors into the water at this point. So I can use these brushes for other colors. And I'm going to start glazing the background here with violet. So again, I want a nice watery glaze of violet here. A little water. And we're going to put some violet glaze behind the sphere. And what we've done here is we put a cool color in the background, and that's going to push the sphere forward. So warm colors tend to come forward, whereas cool colors tend to recede. So at this point, we are glazing a cool color into the background. And not by accident, this cool color is also the complement of yellow. So we're amplifying the contrast between the sphere and that space behind it. We're trying to push that sphere as far forward in space as we can to make our spatial illusion as dramatic as we possibly can. So we've got our background. Again, I don't want to leave any puddles around. The more I kind of move the paint around, the more I'm going to make sure I'm blending it out, not leaving any puddles. I am using the round brush right now because I like to be able to get into the little corners and angles that happen at the edges of the sphere here. I'm trying to move this paint around. Again, it should be transparent. We shouldn't be totally losing the colors that we, or the values that we had painted previously. And we put some variations in those background tones behind the sphere, and we definitely don't want to lose those. because we were, again, trying to manipulate contrast to create the greatest illusion of space that we could. I just grabbed a little bit of water from the cup there to try to make a little bit of glaze with that. Trying to keep our craftsmanship really neat, keep those lines as smooth, crisp as we can between our value bars and our painted sphere here. But so we glazed in that background tone. I'm trying to keep it as smooth as we can. I'm looking for any areas where any puddling might happen. I don't really want to leave any brush marks hanging around. Continue to kind of pull it around, look for any areas. Kind of have my brush in a little more parallel with the surface of the painting at this point. Pretty smooth application at this point. Now I'm going to grab a little bit more of this glaze. This area behind the spheres is potentially where the light isn't hitting. The light's hitting on the surface of the table, but the light is blocked with this cast shadow, so I'm actually going to make it violet also, because that seems to be what's happening to the light in this painting when it is blocked or not hitting anything. The dark areas seem to be taking on a violet tint. Now the area at the edge of the shadow is supposed to be a little blurry. So let's say we blur it out a little bit. How do we do that? We want to blur the area, the edge of the shadow out. And so what we're going to do is just take this small little natural hair brush here. It's a round. Make sure it's damp. And we're just going to take it, we're going to use that little scrubbing, patting technique here. Just get the edge of that purple just to fade over that line just a little bit. If we want to do a little bit of tapping, we can do that. Just trying to get a little bit blurry. Scrub it over the line there a little bit. Just trying to make that edge not crisp. Let me scrub it a little bit here. Turn the brush down this way. Don't want it to really fade out into the area around the shadow very much. Just barely reaches over the edge, a little bit blurry there. Okay, so now we got our initial values down here. We'll probably leave the surface of the table this burnt umber and white brown color, because we'll let these more intense colors be somewhat balanced by more of a neutral color of this table surface. Now we also want to play around with a couple things. One of the things we can do with glazing is we can do kind of a combination of transparent and opaque values. So at this point we can take a little bit of more of a opaque version of yellow, not really a glaze, and we can kind of make this front edge of this sphere a little bit more intense in terms of its yellow properties. Fade it up just a little bit. We'll make that a little bit more intense right there. This is the front part of the sphere that's closest to us. Push that around just a little bit. But we're going to make this a more intense yellow up here, almost opaque. That doesn't ruin our value stuff at all. We also want to do that in the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit more of an opaque violet. Load our brush up with a violet here. And right around the edge of the sphere here, I'm going to go back in, put down a really intense, more opaque violet. Make sure it goes right up to the edge there of the yellow. And then in areas where the red or the orange starts to come up, I'm going to actually mix my violet with a little bit of blue. I'm going to get a violet blue here. Spray my palette. Mix my blue and my violet here. Get kind of a blue violet. Make that a little more watery. And so it's kind of a glaze at this point. And I'm going to actually make my violet color change a little bit right here. And then I use a blending brush. A third brush going to go in between these two areas and get them to kind of fade into each other almost unrecognizably. I'm going to do a little bit of that down here also, a little bit of that bluish version. And again, we're trying to do this almost, again, the same way we did with some of the valley, but almost imperceptible. Somebody else might not even recognize there's a slight change in that violet. Okay, and then just to try to make the painting cohesive, I add a little bit of that blue maybe up here in this corner. Blue violet, that is. Let me add a little bit up there just to balance it out. And again, just try to kind of, if you get a little drop of water like that, try to wipe it off, get rid of it. I'm gonna try to blend, what did I do? Too watery. Come on, brush. Try to blend these two together. Water can be a problem if you get it back on your canvas. You can see it's kind of causing the paint to get way too transparent right there. I'm gonna try to fix that. So we just manipulate the background just a little bit, trying to get the violet to shift. And by putting more of a blue violet in these kind of outer edges, and right here it complements with orange. Again, we're amplifying contrast. Right here, the violet that we put down in a more opaque color contrasts with the yellow there. We could put some of this blue violet down into the outer parts of the shadow also, if we wanted to you know, make those a little less intense than the part right up against the sphere. Fade that in just a bit. Again, we don't really want it to be so noticeable for the viewer. Just kind of almost, it's our own little trick, just we kind of are aware of. And again, if we wanted to make things you know, more, potentially a little more illusionist, we could take a little bit more of this opaque violet, put it right up against the edge of the sphere there. Blend that out just slightly. Okay, so the sphere is really popping forward in front of the background now at this point. Now you can see with the glazing technique, there's a lot of things you can do with layering. For some of you, if you engaged in the painting while you're in class, all we did was put violet down. So we can see here, we again have some of these options to do some of the manipulations that we just did. I'm gonna go back and where's the round? there's a round yellow. And grab some of the yellow that's a little more opaque. So here we could make, oh, that's too much paint. Yellow is naturally kind of a transparent color, but we can make the front edge of this thing a little more intense. Even at this point, we just put another glaze on there. Let me get one of these natural hair brushes and I'm kind of scrub the edges of that around a little bit, try to fade them out. Always like to use my finger. So yeah, we can make that a little more intense in the front there if we want that front edge of the sphere to really pop forward in space. We can intensify the shadow some if we wanted, but we don't have to a whole lot here. Just the idea that you can layer these glazes is really what I was interested in kind of talking about. So even with the background dry at this point, we could go back in and essentially layer some of this blue over top of what we got. So we wanted to make it a little more blue right here by the edge of the sphere. We can at this point go back in and kind of glaze the. My paint is too watery right here, but we'll just keep moving it around until it does what it's supposed to do. So I kind of went over the line there and I was able to just kind of push that paint back over. But we can layer glazes. Again, at this point, if we wanted to try to scumble this edges around or something, we could try that. Or we could go back in with some more purple glaze and just try to make that work. I want to put some more of the blue over here. That also. The slightest bit of it there. It's a little light wash over top there. Let's see what else we got here. Here's a round. Try to get some of the water out of it. And again, we can go back and put some of this opaque violet right up there at the top. A little more intense contrast right here. What we got to do is make sure we can blend into the areas around it so this stuff almost doesn't appear to be there at all. Move some of that around. And with that being, it's a slightly different version of violet. I might do that same trick here where I kind of repeat it in a couple other areas just to try to make the color seem more cohesive and coherent. Just kind of repeating things. And take a big brush here and try to get these things just to kind of I had a big synthetic hairbrush. It wouldn't quite leave all these lines everywhere. Just trying to get the background to modulate just a little bit. We can do the same thing down here in the sphere. And this time if we put a little bit of this blue violet right up here by the orange part, that would be another option. Give just a little bit of a variation in the shadow here. With the orange and the blue being complements, that'll really set off that little moment of the sphere sitting on top of the table there. And we could go to more of a violet out here. So just having these real subtle shifts, a great way to add a lot of interest. Again, almost imperceptible. I want to make our edges a little rough here. I might scrub it out with this empty round. It's not working out real well. Probably go back and manipulate that later. But my real point on this one is just showing you how you can layer glazes over top. For this particular project that we're probably done about what we need to do with our kind of initial experiments with glazes. And we've kept all of our hard work we did with our sphere. And we just added some color, and we used the color strategically to amplify the space in the painting. So we got a couple versions here, and that's the idea. We're just kind of practicing with glazes, seeing we can do versions of opacity and color variations in different ways that make the illusions and the types of space that are created even more and more dramatic. As this dries, it will darken a bit, and will probably look more similar to this one. But in general, this is the idea of the glazing, and good luck with your experiments as you colorize your spheres just a bit. Don't forget to start with at least a 6-color palette, so you have all the options of colors there for you to use. Don't forget your cotton rag and all the materials that you need.